Now, I would like to introduce to you our guest speaker for this graduation ceremony. Manglin Pillay is a professionally registered civil engineer. He graduated from the Vet School of Civil and Environmental Engineering in 2002. He also holds an MBA from the Wits Business School. After graduating as a civil engineer in 2002, he worked at the then Department of Water Affairs and Forestry, which was his bursary sponsor. He left the public sector in 2003 and then spent 8 years in consulting engineer. Manglin currently serves as the CEO of the South African Institution of Civil Engineering, where he focuses on policy, strategy, politics, marketing, and the construction sector performance in relation to South Africa's socioeconomic development. He has become the face and brand of civil engineering in South Africa, representing the profession in big business, politics, education, and funding of infrastructure. He also serves as advisor to Parliament, ministers, and the presidency on matters relating to the construction industry. For those of you graduates who think that because you are becoming engineers, you need to be a little bit cold and a little bit boring and maybe a little bit square, Manglin breaks the mold of the traditional civil engineer. He's also a musician. He received his first qualification in music at the age of 18. He's also a qualified high school mathematics, technical drawing, and drama teacher. He also has a higher diploma in higher education from the University of Natal, which he obtained in 1998. He's married to Edlin Thomas. They live in Johannesburg with 3 children who go by the delightful names of Lyric, Rain, and Salm. Mr. Pillay, we are happy to hear you.
Whenever somebody reads an introduction like that, you just want to run into a hole. I think I know where you got that from. Thank you very, very much. What an honor and a privilege it is to be here with you this afternoon. I want to acknowledge the Vice Chancellor, Dr. Max Price. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak to your graduates. It's a pleasure to be here. I also want to recognize the HODs, the lecturers, and the administration staff. I am delighted to be in your company. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to especially acknowledge our parents. As my mother did for me, I know how you have sacrificed and invested in your children for their education. This is why your children will be successful, because you have chosen to invest and give them an education. Your children are entering a phenomenal world of work in the built environment. I ask you to release them into the world today. I turn my attention now to the graduands. Honor, respect, and take care of your parents if you wish all to be well with you. But graduation day, finally, after at least 4 years of study, some have taken longer, I'd imagine. Congratulations and well done. In the early 1900s, a notorious Indian bank robber named Paisa Pillai was known for stealing millions of rands. A local law enforcement officer, an Englishman, learned that Paisa Pillai was hiding in one of the local Indian bars in Durban. The officer finds out which bar it is and one evening decides to bring Paisa in. He enters the bar and says to the barman, "I am looking for Paisa Pillai." The barman looks down the bar and says in Tamil, which is an Indian language, "Paisa, there's someone here looking for you." He then turns to the police officer and says, "You see down that long bar? That short Indian man? That's Paisa Pillai. But you've got a problem. He does not speak English, only Tamil." "That's fine," says the Englishman. "You can translate for me." So the officer says to the barman, "Tell him that I'm a police officer and I know he is a bank robber. I want to know where he's hidden all of those millions. Tell him I want the truth. I want to know where the money is. If he does not tell me the truth, I am going to shoot to kill." So the barman relays the message, and Paisa responds, "Tell the officer, walk out of this bar, turn left. At the end of that road, he will come to a footpath. Walk down that footpath, it will lead to a river. At the banks of that river is a mango tree. At the bottom of that mango tree is a vault. And that's where all the money is, every single cent of it." The barman turns to the officer and says, "Paisa says shoot and kill." What is truth? And who will stand for truth? My concern for you, graduands, as young men and women, is not technical competency. You are UCT graduates. I expect that you will be technically competent, and if you don't know, I expect that you will figure it out. You are UCT graduates. My worry for you is that you are about to enter into a world that is unscrupulous, intimidating, and aggressive. My worry for you is how you are going to govern your personal and professional lives in such a world. By reaching graduation day today, somebody drew for you a line, and today you are crossing over that line. I want to talk to you about 3 lines you should be drawing for yourselves that will help you navigate through a compromised world. First, draw your line of resistance by training your appetite. Draw your line of resistance by training your appetite. About 10 years ago, I attended a talk on dealing with HIV in the workplace. The person doing the talk was HIV positive. He was a nurse, and one night, in the early hours of the morning, while dealing with a car accident trauma case, he injected a patient. The patient, in his agony, kicked the nurse's hand, who then mistakenly jabbed himself with the used needle. This is a true story. The nurse in the lecture used these words, I quote, "I thought I was all right because it was only a superficial surface jab. But that's how I contracted HIV. It's a deadly virus." Unquote. Could this be true for behavior and the soul as well? Could we allow a paper-thin cut to cut our souls that could remove all resistance to diseases of the soul, amuse a trivial enticement, enter a relationship, or make a choice that lacerates us in such a way that it installs a different kind of hunger in us that starts the destruction process? The allurement of quick wealth through unethical means, for example. In the construction sector, you just need to look at the media. It is very attractive. A little bribe for the award of a tender, or perhaps a manipulated invoice that will pay for that bonus you are aspiring for, or that car that you wish to buy. And graduates, while I am at it, Vice Chancellor, while I am at it, I want to speak to the young men. There are people out there with businesses that feed hungers and passions, meant to make them rich, but break you and distract you from meaningful relationships and to tear you away from your purpose and calling. Guard yourself. Draw your lines of resistance by training and disciplining your appetites early on in your careers. Who will stand for truth? Second, draw your line of courage by depending on a higher order value system. Neil MacLeod is a world-renowned water engineer and a close colleague. A few weeks ago, we were together in Parliament addressing the Portfolio Committee for the Department of Water and Sanitation. And we were addressing the issues on the Cape Town water crisis, Western Cape issues around water. This was Neil's introduction. I quote, "My name is Neil MacLeod. I have 43 years of work experience in the water sector. I am here to speak truth," unquote. And then Neil turns to the minister and he says, I quote again, "Minister, your department is the problem. You used to have 300 technical professionals in your department, and now you have barely 50. And you are wondering why we have a drought management crisis on our hands?" Unquote. Neil once told me in a corridor discussion, I quote again, "In my career, some councillors tried to make me do funny things. That's not what I stand for. They wanted to fire me. I told them, go for it, fire me. I don't care. I'll keep my integrity. I also told them that if they fire me, I'll tell the media what they wanted me to do. And you know what? Councillors have come and gone. I was there for 4 decades." Unquote. Graduates, I know it's not fair for me to say when I was a boy, but when I was a boy growing up, there was a phrase we used to describe good people in our community. We referred to them as a God-fearing man or a God-fearing woman. What this meant was they lived by a higher order value system rooted in transcendent authority. We are secular in our thinking these days, and I know we don't talk like that anymore. And that's okay, but the principle still remains. Develop and train your courage to stand firm through a conviction of what is moral, right, and true. Who will stand for truth? Thirdly, and finally, draw the lines of your training for wisdom. For many years, I believed that formal education was key to resolving the world's social problems. I learned, however, that while education is critical, we must pursue it. Education on its own is dangerous. In an article I wrote in 2013, I asked the question, who planned, designed, and constructed Hitler's gas chambers and concentration camps? Viktor Frankl, the famous Holocaust survivor who was a professor of neurology and psychiatry, in his book, The Doctor and the Soul, said, I quote, "I am absolutely convinced the gas chambers of Auschwitz, Treblinka, and Majdanek were ultimately prepared not in some ministry or other in Berlin, but rather at the desks and lecture halls of nihilistic scientists, philosophers, and engineers." Unquote. This means, graduates, that in the history of engineering and the built environment, someone sat at a desk and with great accuracy did mathematical equations and calculations using Boyle's law and the ideal gas equation. You remember that from first year? Using Boyle's law and the ideal gas equation to determine the amount of gas required to suffocate and kill 12,000 people per day in a tight space confined by brick and mortar walls. The chambers and furnaces, too, were designed and constructed by engineers, educated men and women. 6 million people were killed, 1 million were children. The German nation, in terms of technological advancement and knowledge, were the most educated people of that time. But there was something missing: wisdom. I have long asked myself, where does wisdom and insight come from? I'm making this statement to make the point. I read on average a book fortnightly. I have traveled to almost 40 countries, engaging with people from all walks of life: students, professionals, politicians, laymen. And in my travels and in my ponderings, this is the only credible answer I can give you. It is as follows. In the Torah, we read, wisdom begins with fear of God. In the original Hebrew text, it reads, Yirat Hashem, Yirat Adonai, which actually means walk in God's way and God will focus your form of seeing. After 4 years of study and reading, today you are walking away from UCT with a new dimension of thinking and philosophy. But that which will place you in positions of affluence and influence to stand before kings, presidents, and leaders is wisdom. Education can give you knowledge, but it is only God that gives wisdom upon that knowledge. Who will stand for truth? Young people, we are building a nation. And I have come to speak to you because of what you stand for and what you represent. You must stand for truth. You must fight to protect truth and to bring forth the clarity of truth at all cost. You are facing a tough world. You are facing a hostile world, a challenging world. Draw the lines in the right places. Train your appetite. Build your courage by depending on a godly value system. And finally, do not rely on your education alone, but develop wisdom. I wish to leave you, graduates, with a blessing. Leli langa ngelami lokubusiswa uthena mangincele wena uzongenzela ungoJehova ngiyacela nicela ukuhlakanipha uvula ingqondo yami nicela ukuphumelela ngoba sungipha lenhlonipho. This day belongs to me. To receive my blessings, you said, ask, and you shall grant me my blessings. You are God, I ask in your name. I ask you, grant me wisdom. Grant me a bright, beautiful mind. Grant me success and prosperity. And grant me respect. Amen, and God bless you all.